Hello, and welcome to the TMG Fireside Chat. The premise of the TMG Fireside Chat is to bring leaders across the fire protection and life safety industry together and talk about industry-wide challenges and highlight solutions that will help to solidify the industry's foundation while preparing for growth through new technologies and strategies. In this episode, we are into part 2 of our conversation with Nolan Mackey. In this context, or in this episode, he talks about his technology or technician support platform called UpLadder. He talks about what he's learned through development of UpLadder by talking and working with technicians and learning more about their expectations in managing careers and how they can be trained and developed. He also makes a shout out to Jeff Wyatt, the CEO of Certisite, in a post that Jeff made on LinkedIn about the challenge the industry has as a whole in keeping the skilled labor force in the industry while we're dealing with challenges coming from other employers like Amazon, like maybe auto manufacturing or other markets that are developing in our communities. We also talk about how fire protection contractors can support technicians and helping them manage careers in fire protection. Nolan shares his perspective on that. And he also talks about what companies can do to engage his generation. Nolan's 24 years old, so anyone 18 to 25 years old, what are their expectations in the workforce? Nolan hits on open communication. He hits on being transparent in how you run your business. He talks about the importance of training, developing, and retaining people, and all the aspects of what is required in that. He also talks about two-way mentorship and sitting down with employees of all age groups and really understand what they're looking for in their job, how they're trying to manage a career, et cetera, et cetera. And finally, he talks about his experiences at 2 conferences. In 2022, he went to his first NAFED conference. And in June of 2023, he was at his first NFPA conference. There, he was a brand ambassador for a fluoroketone manufacturer, and just talked about his first experience and what he really enjoyed about the conference and his key takeaways. So that was the highlights of episode or part 2 of our conversation with Nolan Mackey. We hope you enjoy it, and have a great day. Be safe.
We've got 12,000 contractors in this space of fire protection.
Yeah.
A number of them they're very large. And they've got their own universities. They've got a ton of resources with regard to academies and ways that they kind of take their own people and help grow and develop them. But there are so many more, let's say 6,000, 7,000 contractors out there that don't have those resources. Right? And so you're a technician that works for that firm. What you're highlighting with UpLadder gives you the ability to, as a technician in the trade, to really kind of control your own destiny. Find those resources to help you manage your career.
Yeah.
I think it's a great solution. I think it's something that we really, really need, and it creates a platform for people to really just become more educated about where opportunities are across the trade. So
it's you pointed out the biggest thing is that those companies have realized it, right, and that they have realized, well, we have to try to generate our own workforce, and those companies have the resources to be able to do it, and they totally should be doing it. And there was Jeff Wyatt. He made a post a couple months ago on LinkedIn that still resonates with me, which was that there's becoming an increasing issue where companies such as Amazon or these large warehouse companies that can come into a community and offer a more competitive rate that is enticing enough that they're losing technicians to these jobs, and that he is no longer worried about the investment that he's making to training an employee to whatever level he needs them at. He's less worried about losing them to a competitor across town. He's more worried about them going to an entirely different industry. And I think that's the biggest thing, is getting people into the industry and building up the skills and ability that keeps them in the industry. The last thing you want is that workforce to be dwindling just because of other industries,
Yep.
you know? And this creates an opportunity where, you know, like I said, the individual is in control of their growth. They continue to grow and progress and take these courses and get licenses all the way up to the point where if they max out and their employer no longer has room for them, becoming more understanding, and this might get into what, you know, kind of my outlook and perspective is on younger generations and what they're looking for. If an employee, a technician is out there in the field and works their way up, and after 4 or 5 years, they're now looking for a new opportunity.
Right.
They're looking to get a little bit better pay, get a little bit more, you know, exposure to something in the industry. They're wanting that new opportunity. Their employer no longer can offer it for them, right? Understanding that you may have 10 technicians out in the field in trucks. You only have 3 designers or, you know, 3 engineers back in the office. You can't take 10 to 1 or 10 to 3 without losing a few.
Right.
It's understood. But that employee gets to a level where they say, okay, I've now reached this point. Are you as my employer able to accommodate this growth?
Right.
And I think employers will over time, and they should start to become more understanding of, I have reached the maximum benefit I can from this employee. And they've reached the maximum benefit from me. It has to be a mutually beneficial thing. And once it's no longer, once one is suffering or one is gaining more than the other, it's totally okay to separate and move on. And helping that employee by saying, hey, I know that there's an opening across town at our competitor. We would love to give an introduction and work with them and start to have this sort of trade circles of things. Fire industry and companies as a whole need to work together. Trades as a whole need to work together. And that doesn't mean, like, you know, yes, you're still going to fight for contracts. You're still going to fight for those jobs, right? You need those to survive. But when it comes to labor and when it comes to supporting each other in the industry as a whole, I think labor is one of the easiest things to share. And it's one of the best things to do that builds up the industry and makes it stronger. Because an employee who moves from one competitor to another, they just become a stronger force in the industry. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah. So it's this, you know, it's the investment that you make in your people. You know, 1, helps your business.
Yeah.
2, helps the individual. 3, supports the industry.
Yeah.
And to Jeff's point, and Jeff and I have had that conversation as well, is that, you know, we'd rather see the industry supporting the growth of our technicians and our skilled trades, and can create an environment where they stay within the industry.
Yeah.
Right. But to, like Jeff has, you know, highlighted in his post, was that they're going to Amazon, they're going to work in the hospital, they're going to, you know, altogether just go do something else.
Right.
And all that knowledge, all that effort that we put in, we've lost. And so we've got to find a way to share that amongst each other. It might be a little tough in city to city.
Yeah.
But I do see people moving across the country, right? Because if, you know, you grew up in Chicago and you have an opportunity to work in, you know, Charlotte, North Carolina, or you've got an opportunity to work in Arizona.
Yeah.
Right. Now you've got skills.
Right.
Right. So I think that's where the opportunities lie and how we do that. So you hit on a couple different things, but, you know, let's, as it relates to UpLadder and what you're experiencing, what do companies need to do, or should they explore when they're working with people in your age group? Right, you're in your mid-20s, you know, out of school. In some cases, it's even go as far as say out of tech school or out of high school, and trying to work with you know the group that's between under the age of 30.
Yeah.
You know, what are some of the key things that you see employers or companies need to do in order to develop, retain, attract those people into their workplace?
Yeah, I think everyone's a little bit different, right? I'm obviously very extroverted. I'm very collaborative. I like to work alongside people and share a lot. And I think creating opportunities for companies to include employees at every level of things. You know, we touched on training, right? So training's a big thing, right? For someone who's coming out of college or tech school, especially college now, I feel like you come out of it with academic understanding, but not a practical understanding. And so giving opportunities for that.
That I agree with you, but
Yeah.
your experience is a little bit different too, because you got caught up in the COVID year. You didn't have an opportunity to do real internships and
Right.
some other things because the COVID cycle just kind of threw off that whole experience.
Well, but even that, in the internship level of things, there's a certain temporary element to it, right? Where you're coming out, it's big scary adult world that's like, oh, what, I want to get a job and I want to like stay there for, a good amount of time, and in order to do that, I need to learn about this. I need to learn it. I need to know it, because anything that I can gain and retain is beneficial for my whole career.
Absolutely.
And so I think being aware that incoming anyone is going to want to learn and become invested in the company. And ways that you can do that is having a lunch and learn. Once a week, each department having the office cater lunch or whatever for them to say, let's sit down, let's talk about the company, let's share ideas, let's share things. Even incorporating it, something that we've talked about, I've talked about with people in the past, is finding a way to open up the floor for their own employees to offer a learning opportunity for their fellow employees, right? Say, I want to give a 15-minute talk at the lunch and learn, and I want to talk about what I do and something that I've learned and ways that others can maybe help me and I can help others, right? Simple thing that someone can do, give them some type of credit for that. Give them, incentivize it so that they can, take the initiative to do that type of thing. And again, investing in the knowledge of the employees and helping them feel like an integral part of the business, being transparent about things, open communication. I know it's really hard for, again, my perspective, corporate things. Corporate likes to kind of keep things at each level. And it doesn't pass through levels very much. Being as transparent about things when possible is really important to making that employee feel like they are a part of it. Last thing you want to do is alienate, and building them up to the point where, again, mutually beneficial. Understanding that gone are the years of 25 plus year careers, within an employer. Starting with a company and retiring with a company is going to be virtually non-existent. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Because you want someone to be in an industry, to bounce around, to have a new perspective, to constantly be learning things. And so if an employee works with you for 5 to 6 years and that employee comes to the point of, I feel like I've learned as much as I can from this, being totally okay with that. And eventually we'll get to a cycle where HR departments and managers will understand those cycles of things, and open communication becomes more of a conversation of, okay, I'm so glad that you've been able to gain all of this from us, and we really appreciate you as an employee. Is there someone in mind, or maybe someone at your university that we can connect with, that we would like to bring in to this role that you started in this same position, and we really liked what you brought in at that time? Can you help us with that? Help them out. It makes that transition so much easier. That open communication and dialogue just helps a lot.
Yeah, I think what you're highlighting is that, again, it's just, collaboration, teamwork. All right. The technician wants to make sure that, hey, I'm not out there by myself. This company's helping, build my career and help me manage whatever it might be. And I think it's just, sitting down and having honest conversations, communication about expectations in careers and expectations in the job and where you want to take things. Right. I think it's most people want to continue to grow and advance. Right. They may never want to be in an office, but they may want to move off of the shop floor to an installation tech, into a service tech, to maybe be a project manager. Right. There's plenty of field-related work to do across a number of trades, right? Versus moving into sales and then becoming a general manager or manager of the department, et cetera, right? So, 100 different pathways that you can take it. But ultimately, it comes down to, like you're highlighting, is it's the conversation that you as an employee, regardless of your age, has with the owner or their manager. You say, here's what I want to work at next. Here's what I'm looking to do. Here's what I really like. Here's what I dislike. Right? because the people that are in the building today, you normally align with your company's culture.
Yeah.
Right? It's a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You're interacting with the same people. You're in the same environment.
Family.
You have the same awareness as the ones around you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's good insight. I like that.
But no, and the best way to just get started being more aware of that is regular sit-down meetings with a manager, right? Doing those quarterly, semi-annually, whatever they want to do.
Performance reviews, but not necessarily just for formal.
No, not at all.
It's a check-in.
And again, it needs to be a conversation.
Yep.
It sit on the same side of a table, not on the other side when it comes to it. And
on the other side of the desk.
Yeah, exactly. And have it where, obviously the manager is going to initiate the conversation, but they go into it saying, hey, just wanted to check in. How are you? What do you need?
Yeah.
Right? And be very open. This goes to the technicians and the employees as well. Be very open in those moments. Just say, like, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, but I've started to take note of what the guy across the hall from me is doing, and I'm really interested in that. And I feel like it might be something that I might want to do. I'm okay in this position that I'm in right now, but I could see myself in the next year starting to look for something different.
Yeah.
And the manager at that time says, awesome. Well, let's let's have you, sit in on that office for a day or whatever, or go create those opportunities for them to continue to learn. And at the same time, the manager gets to say, this is what we kind of need from you. We would love to move you into this opportunity. Can we put you in these classes? Can we, have you do this in your free time or something to better prepare for that? And that's the best way of doing it, because it puts a finger on the pulse. It gets an idea of what is in that employee's mind, and
staying connected with your people.
It does, and it's the easiest thing to do. It's 4 meetings that happen in a year, and they last 30 minutes. They don't have to last super long. And it's
easy to do once you actually sit down and have the meeting. The biggest challenge we have is scheduling it and making a commitment to make sure they happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because we get distracted.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, so let's pivot off of that. You've been able to go to 2 industry trade shows over the last year and a half, 2 years cycle in the calendars the last year. So you're at NAFED Indianapolis last year, and then you just rolled out of NFPA Las Vegas and your first trip to NFPA. So first timer coming to these shows, briefly, just give me a perspective of, your take. What you saw at NAFED and what you experienced at NFPA and what you're doing there, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. NAFED was great. I was super nervous going into it. Because at the time, that was when I was just getting, my company started and was wanting to talk to people and get some feedback on it. And, the biggest thing is like, well, why are they going to listen to me? What am I going to have to say? But everyone was very receptive to what I was there to talk to them about.
You met some great people.
I did. A ton of great people. And still, get to connect with them often. And it was the biggest thing that stood out to me, and it even applied to NFPA as well, was the, I guess, not so much shock, but of younger generation being around, right? New faces, and everyone was always wondering, like, well, how, why, what brought you into this, right? Again, going back to are you John Mackey's son? They those people kind of get it. But new people that I met that you had not met before, or that you had not talked to in a while, or they may have not known about me, they were usually very interested as to how I kind of got into it, because again, it's not an industry that a lot of people think to get into. And NAFED, I really enjoyed the seminars and the discussions that were happening at NAFED. I didn't get a chance to do those at NFPA because I was on the floor. But
I remember sitting through Paul Hayes' presentation on 855 and battery protection.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
Yeah, that's definitely the most fascinating part, the most fascinating challenge.
And that was at NAFED
last year,
2020.
Yeah, 22. Yeah. And that's again, as an automotive person, a car person, the EV world and just the electronics that we're seeing in the world right now, very, very fascinating challenge. And I'm very interested to see how that gets solved, because it has to be solved.
Absolutely.
It's going to have to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was. Those seminars were really, really cool to kind of sit in on. And then obviously the kind of social hours afterwards in the evenings.
Yeah.
Those were fun. That's another thing for any younger people that don't know about this industry is it's fun. I mean, like, the circles are big, right? A lot of people know people in this industry. People have been in it for a long time. You get to know a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's everyone I've been to two. But both of them that I've been to, there's reunions that are happening.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone's catching up in the evenings. It's no longer about work. It sometimes is, but it's mostly about how people are doing it, sharing stories. I remember at NFPA, you had run into some people that you hadn't talked to in a while, and talking about stories and stuff that you had that at the time I was in elementary and middle school. Right. I didn't know what was going on in your world, and so it was really cool for me to sit in on those conversations, and learn about those things. And it was great. And then at NFPA, I was on the floor. I was displaying, so I didn't get to go and do those seminars and stuff.
Right.
And it was very different, but still felt like a fire industry event.
Well, yeah, you were a brand ambassador for one of the fluoroketone manufacturers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
how was that that situation because of what's going on with 3M's announcement of leaving the market?
Yeah, that was. I mean, we were. When that announcement happened, I remember we were like together or something, and it was big news, obviously, across the whole entire industry when 3M announced that they're pulling out of that market. And it was like, oh, okay, what's going to happen now?
Yeah.
And fast forward to then being a part of the conversations of, groups of people that are leading that conversation of, all right, what does change? What is going to be the next company that does it? Who's going to be the supplier of this for thousands of systems across the world that require this product?
Over 100,000 systems installed.
Yeah. And it was really interesting. The scientific chemistry kind of conversation that had to be had. A lot of people, it splits the aisle. You've got some people who are like, well, 3M pulled out for a reason, and bad chemical, don't want anything to do with it. It was discussing with those people, well, the differences of the chemicals and how 3M manufactured it versus how it can be supplied, and it's not.
Well, to your point about that PFAS is that not all PFAS is equal, right? And, science has shown that the fluoroketones, are good PFAS.
Right.
We need those.
Yeah.
Right. That's not toxic. It's not bioaccumulative.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, good product that we need. Not like AFFF foam, which is toxic, which is bioaccumulative.
Yeah.
And creates a lot of problems in the soil and the water.
Yeah. And there was, again, split the aisle. Some people were very opposed to it, said, I'm going to trust 3M and stay away from it. There were other people that were like, oh, thank goodness there's someone trying to become a supplier for this, because 3M pulled out and we don't know what we're going to do. We've got hundreds of systems that we've got to supply, and we're not sure what's going to happen. And then the fun conversations were the people that were like, I don't know what this is. It doesn't apply to me at all, but tell me about it. Like, I want to know about it, and being able to explain to them and show them. I remember there was a group of, I'm not sure what they did in the fire industry specifically, because they were like, when we explained to them special hazard systems and different applications for special hazards, they were like, oh, interesting. And they're like, yeah, I mean, I guess data center could catch on fire. Yeah, or you could have a large airplane hangar that catches on fire or something like that. Right. And explaining it to them and getting to finally do I'd heard about the phone in the tank
The
display
demo.
and everything.
Yeah.
And so finally, being able to say like, yeah, you could take your phone and you could throw it in that tank and nothing will happen to it. One of the guys goes, really? I said, yeah. He said, all right, do it. I said, all right. And he was like, you're really going to? I said, yeah. But I plopped it in there. Phone screen came on, and he was like, oh, wow. And I pull it out. Phone still works. And then I let him touch it. It's completely dry. And he was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's like, that is fascinating. So that was really, really cool to kind of be able to do that. And be a part of something that is, it's a mix of a very interesting hot topic in the industry, but also my interest for being that new, interesting thing and being able to represent something new. A startup. Yeah. Because it's just so fascinating to me, getting to learn the inner workings of a startup or getting to see a hole in a market that a startup can fill. And I mean, just the opportunities.
Yeah.
It's just huge. It's tremendous. And being able to be like, I want to create that. I want to be a part of that. It is so fun. And you can get that from a large company that's trying to create something new in an industry, but something about the new company is fun.
All right, so having that experience, and obviously you've been fortunate to have some doors open for you.
Yes.
Some great people that you've got to meet. When if you were to talk to anybody that's listening to this podcast or somebody that's like exploring career opportunities and what have you, what would you share with them with regard to fire protection, and say as it relates to one, how do you become more aware of it, and two, how do you create opportunities for yourself?
The first thing, you always have to have an open mind with it, of course. And there is so much to learn in it, and you can never know enough. And so taking every opportunity, if there's a trade show, going to seminars, if you can talk to an employer and you can say, hey, I'd love to go to this seminar. Can I represent the company there? And taking those opportunities to learn a lot about it is huge. Because that can only help you in your career. And the other thing is, if you're coming into the industry new, I've talked to lots of candidates that I've tried to recruit and bring into the industry, is once you start, this is any industry, but fire industry a lot, if you have 2 years of experience at any level of the fire industry, you go apply to another fire, distributor, contractor, whatever, you are going to be hugely valuable. Because even the smallest understanding of the industry is a lot more than someone who doesn't know anything. Because it is a very hard line in the industry. You either know it or you don't.
Right.
And so getting into it, if you're looking for a career in an industry, it's a phenomenal industry to be in. There's a million directions you can go in, and the knowledge only builds on itself, and it's very fulfilling. It's very fulfilling. There's something that feels good about it, that is, you're creating systems that help save lives, that are very important, and at the same time very interesting and fascinating to the individual. There's not many other industries that are out there that do that.
No, this is and we're at a point, I think, in the industry where we're getting ready to make a transition, right? Because of the hazards that are coming into the workplace or coming into our communities now, EVs, sustainable energy type systems. So the energy grids are changing. How are we going to protect big assets like semiconductor plants, big manufacturing facilities,
huge warehouses,
huge warehouses. Meeting with contractors, over the last 3-4 months, the forecast hasn't been, this strong. In a long time. There's a ton of construction.
Right.
Projects are going to carry out for another 7, 8, 9 years. And
The-
things that we haven't seen in a long time. So it's healthy.
The need for people at every level in the industry is continuously growing. You look at tech sector. Tech has been growing for a ton of years, and over the past 2 years, it started to decline, and there's a lot of people that are uncertain of what's going to happen there. You look at automotive industry. That's a constantly fluctuating industry where manufacturers are constantly hiring, constantly laying off, depending on supply chain and new products, old products, phasing out, shutting down plants, outsourcing, all kinds of stuff. The fire industry is a U.S. industry. It lives here. It thrives here. There's nothing slowing it down.
There's similarities around the world with regard to how the need for good fire equipment and good technicians. However, the rigor and the structure that the U.S. has specific around NFPA codes and standards, number one. Number two, the expectations of insurance companies, the expectations of fire chiefs and fire marshals, and holding people accountable for the code and the standard. And then the relationship in the market between manufacturer of equipment OEMs and their distributor partner channel partners. Yeah. Right? And how all that works together. I mean, it's all those pieces. I think they identified 5 or 6 of them. All those work in unison, to really sustain, make this industry very stable and very sustainable over time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's many benefits to it. And it's definitely something that, anyone who's unsure of where they're going to go, what they're going to do after college, trade school, whatever, fire industry, it's a great place to start.
Yeah, that's great. All right, we're going to wrap up.
Yep.
One of the questions that we always wrap up every podcast with is always around leadership and mentorship.
Yeah.
And so if you have an opportunity to work with one person who you really look up to, or, someone that you would have, either you worked with and had the most fun with, but, in your early career, even just through your experiences in your life, who do you want the opportunity to work with?
My grandfather, Fred Morozic, so
Papa.
I really got to know him at the tail end of his career. He's a custom cabinet builder.
Yep. Explain where.
In Frankfort, Illinois,
Chicago
south suburbs area, and he custom cabinets for anyone and lots of well-known people but the thing that always just fascinated me so much about him from the grandson perspective,
going to job sites and hang out in the cabinet shop.
Well, he always knew someone.
Yep.
He always knew him by name.
I got a guy.
Yeah, he always knew him by name. He knew their closest family. He knew what was going on in their life. He knew them so well and was able to just have such strong connections with people.
He remembered every project he installed.
Yes. Yeah.
Over 60 years of owning that cabinet shop.
Yes.
Between him and his dad.
Yeah. So just the way he conducted business as a person was immensely respectable. And I want to be able to, obviously he had a small business, small area he covered, but I want to be able to feel like I've done that with my work and what I do, is be able to have those connections with people and not know them on a surface level, but know a lot about them and continue to stay in touch with them and stay in contact with them. And at the same time, it was that work and it was those connections that he was able to have, that every day he came home, he was cheerful, big personality that we knew and loved, and just be able to live that life. Yeah. It was, when his retirement came around, it was, one, earned it like 150%, and celebrated it. Yeah. He everything fun that he could do, he did. Yep. And that's what I want to work towards, and that's how I want to be able to conduct business.
Yep. So Papa taught us the importance of relationships. Yeah. Right? And how you treat people with dignity and respect. From a customer service perspective, he did what he could to meet the needs of the customer. Yeah. Within reason. Right. Sometimes he gives stuff away for free, which we kind of scratched our head on. Yeah. But he's going to take care of the customer. Yeah. But the importance of relationships, because those customers came back to him again and again and again and again. Yeah.
No, and it's at the same time, it's my fiance Vivian. Her grandfather passed away last year.
Yeah.
He did the same thing.
Yeah.
His whole career, he was a bread man.
Yeah.
He started off after high school, delivered bread. He was a bread boy. Then worked in the bakery, all the way up to becoming vice president of the Southeast for Colonial Bread.
Yeah.
Sammy Register, and the same thing, connections and people, and he knew everyone across that whole region.
Yeah.
He was such a well-known person, and it's definitely something that I really, really wish I had an opportunity to work alongside both of them to see how they operated day to day. That's something I question every day. Every day I have some moment of, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? What is right? Who knows? Right? And so being able to have those references and being able to talk to people.
Hey guys, thank you for listening and going on this journey with us. If you enjoyed what you heard, please give the TMG Fireside Chat a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And be sure to like, follow, and share TMG on all socials, as well as all podcast platforms. And finally, be sure to tell your friends across the fire protection industry about the TMZ Fireside Chat. Thank you and be safe.